There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 25, police, including vote number 23, independent police, investigative directorate appropriation bill.
I now call upon the Honourable the Minister of Police to introduce the debate. The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable House Chair, Deputy Minister of Police, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, members of the Portfolio Committee, honourable members, the National Commissioner of Police and Provincial Commissioners, members of the South African Police Service, members of the Community Police Forum, esteemed guests, fellow South Africans, ladies and gentlemen. A pillar of strength, knowledge, and intellectual capability in South Africa, Ms. Nadine Gordimer passed on a week ago. As a country, we have become poorer. We draw solace from the fact that Ms. Gordimer lived her life well to the service of humankind. We take this opportunity to pass on condolences to family, friends, and society at large. We present this budget vote in the month in which we commemorate our hero and icon, the late Dr. Nelson Mandela, the former president. We are guided by his exhortations and legacy. In this regard, we commit ourselves to his ideals that he fought for, and recalling that he was hounded and incarcerated for 27 years so that we can stand here today and proclaim that South Africa indeed does belong to those who live in it, black and white. Indeed, it is no wonder that South Africans of all hues fanned across the country on Friday, the 18th of July, to spend 67 minutes doing good in remembrance. And in our midst today, we have some of the everyday heroes, the men and women in blue who make our lives better. From Limpopo, we have Captain Dinas Erasmus, Constable Dunyego Mongwe, and Constable Victor Moloto, who put their lives at great risk helping crash survivors out of the explosive truck that had crashed only to be at the receiving end of the explosion themselves. Constable Tembagazi Jacobs brings hope to domestic abuse survivors in the Khayelitsha area. And of course, Warrant Officer Nico Smallboy, who is a reservist, who's our worthy winner of the National Prestige Award. With your permission, Chair, I would ask them to identify themselves. They must be somewhere in the gallery that I just mentioned. Thank you. These are the heroes that cement our resolve to bring together all our people irrespective of race, gender, creed, and religion, or any other basis for discrimination. We are so directed by the Freedom Charter. We further aspire to the creation of a state where our people are free, safe, and able to raise our children in a stable society. In 1992, the African National Congress asserted in its Ready to Govern document that our role is to achieve better policing and an efficient criminal justice system with the involvement of our people in the fight against crime and mobilize to refurbish the moral fabric of our South African society. We are directed by this policy position to ensure that, amongst other things, policing is based on community support and participation, that police remain accountable to society and the community it serves through its democratically elected institutions, that policing continues to be subjected to public scrutiny and open debate, that allegations of police misconduct are dealt with by an independent complaints and investigation mechanism, that we require a police service that continues to strive for higher performance standards. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa mandates us, I quote, to prevent, combat, investigate crime, to maintain public order, to protect and secure the inhabitants of the Republic and their property, and to uphold and enforce the law, close quote. And further, it calls upon the minister, quote unquote, the Minister of Police to promote good relations between the police and the community and to assess the effectiveness of visible policing. We recommit ourselves to these ideals and further take stock of the journey that has been traveled thus far. Importantly, continue to interrogate as to what it is that needs to be done going forward. We should recall that the battle against crime cannot be separated from the war on want, and that as the SAPS we are called upon to maintain law and order in the face of extreme poverty. A week ago, I sat down with a family in New Brighton in the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan in the Eastern Cape and listened to the harrowing story of how criminals brazenly walked into the house, demanded to see someone, and without a flinch, shot and killed the lady at point-blank range over a petty argument. Alongside the MEC for Safety and Security and other officials, we were struck not so much by the pain of death, but rather the hopelessness of the situation that family found itself in, of harrowing abject poverty, to say the least. This is the sin that plays itself over and over again in families and communities across our country, and oftentimes this leads into the crime wave, and we cannot be blind to this fact. In pursuing our ideal of a safe and secure environment, we are conscious of the fact that our role as the police service is at the tail end of this process. It is for these reasons that we are advocating for an integrated approach to issues of policing and social stability. For us to succeed in this approach, we need to work with other organs of state, business, non-governmental organizations, research and tertiary institutions, and this ideal finds traction in the NDP, the National Development Plan, which has been crafted and adopted as the blueprint for the future. The NDP envisages a state where the police work closely with communities, where real partnerships emerge among the different organs of state to ensure that the root causes of crime and criminality are addressed before they pose a major threat to our society. With this in mind, through the medium-term strategic framework, the South African Police Service will focus on the following key strategic priorities: reduce the number of serious crimes, combat border and cyber crime, increase the percentage of trial-ready case dockets for serious crimes, stabilize public protests, enhance local police capability. Further, Honorable Chair, in this financial year, we are going to introduce and/or reintroduce the following legislative and policy reviews: a comprehensive review of the South African Police Act to align it with the Constitution, a research and policy into reducing the barriers to the reporting of cases of violence against women and children, serial murders and rapes, a review of how CPF and CSF can assist the police in the stabilization of areas affected by service delivery protests, research on the assessment of police deployments and how these impact on crime, legislative policy and research into the impact of firearm legislation on crime, and the need to investigate areas of legislation that requires strengthening. In our 2014 election manifesto, we said we can move South Africa forward by forging a compact between government and its citizens in ensuring that being safe becomes the normal state of our country. There is an interwoven thread between the Freedom Charter, the Strategy and Tactics, the NDP, and the ANC election manifesto, which also points to a consistent aspiration and wish for a better life in conditions of peace, safety, and security. We commit the South African Police Service to community engagement, listening, and of being one with the people that we serve. We are also obliged to fight crime and restoring the citizens' faith and trust in our law enforcement agencies and the criminal justice system. For us to achieve this, we should take a cue from the KwaZulu-Natal province, who have articulated correctly so that we need to build a united front against crime and corruption. South African citizens need to embrace that which is good with our police and reject that which is bad. We appeal to all our citizens to use designated institutions of policing to deal with matters of policing and conduct by the police. We're extremely concerned by the spate of killings of our policemen and women and call on our communities to mobilize against such a scourge. It should be taken into cognizance that South Africans, through their taxes, pay a lot of money to train our policemen and women. Therefore, as society, we must ask ourselves as to why we should keep quiet in the face of a concerted destructive campaign waged against our policemen and women. We appreciate the work that has been done by the Mpumalanga province in highlighting the cost to society around this issue, and for coining the theme, you kill the police, you kill the community. Kufanele sonke bantu bakithi ngobuningi bethu siphakame silwe nesihluku esingaka sokubulawa kwabantu bomthetho. Uma sihluleka ukwazi ukwenza lokhu, kusho ukuthi sobe asinendaba nokuthi abantwana bethu sobashiyela ikusasa elinjani. Ngobuningi bethu kufanele sisukume sisho ngazulinye sithi wabulala iphoyisa ubulala umphakathi. As part of the process of professionalization in the police service, we have approved changes to the recruitment strategy at entry level of constables with a view to ensure that only the best suited candidates are recruited into the South African Police Service. All our new recruits will be taken through rigorous testing for their suitability before they start with their formal training. Further, they will be taken through grooming camps for screening purposes, vetting, written assessments, physical fitness, as well as other diagnostic tests on behavior, patriotism, and culture. These changes have been introduced as part of the community-based recruitment strategy that is aimed at addressing the challenges such as pending and/or previous convictions, fraudulent qualifications, and to avoid nepotism in the recruitment of officers. In terms of this strategy, the role of the community in commenting on their suitability will also assist in completing the 360-degree cycle of suitability testing. We have further put in place mechanisms to build capacity within our crime intelligence units all over the country. A number of critical senior and middle management positions were filled in the reporting period. This is an important unit that helps the police in the fight against crime, and its significance cannot be overemphasized. We will further ensure that the current members of the police service are taken through rigorous sessions to understand the code of conduct. We are expecting each and every member to acknowledge and understand the contents of the code before signing in order to make sure that they are accountable. Our approach on professionalization of the police service will contribute to the zero tolerance towards corruption and nepotism and deliver the caliber of a police official who will serve the people of this country with dignity and pride. In 2010, an initiative was undertaken by government to strengthen and realign the role of the Civilian Secretariat for Police as part of strengthening civilian oversight of the police. The initiative involved a two-pronged approach, namely institutional reform and organizational reform. On institutional reform, the Civilian Secretariat for Police Act was passed and put into operation by December 2011. The Act establishes the Secretariat as a separate department with its own budget and lines of reporting. The Act also requires provincial oversight roles to be aligned with those of the Secretariat as part of strengthening both intergovernmental cooperation and provincial monitoring of SAPS. All provinces have begun the process of aligning their structures and process with those of the Secretariat. In addition, organizational reform and processes have started, which has seen the structure grow from 38 people to over 114 people between 2011 and 2014. In his State of the Nation address in 2013, the President of the Republic announced the establishment of the executing structure for public order policing to ensure that public order is effectively restored and that national stability is ensured. Given the country's socio-political circumstance, in 2013-2014 financial year, we responded by upgrading equipment for the public order unit with a specific focus on the following: the designing and procurement of new operational vehicles, the development of a specification by the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research for water cannons that can be locally manufactured, the procurement of long-range acoustic devices, the procurement of audio recording devices, video cameras, and accessories, as well as ammunition and pyrotechnics. In the intervening period, 1,826 members successfully attended the public order policing refresher training on crowd management techniques for operational readiness. 60 members were trained on video camera operators. and information managers to capture footage during crowd-related incidents. All these efforts are conducted in line with the national vision of demilitarizing the police service, as well as putting in place a civilian approach to public order policing with a view to reduce the levels of militaristic or perceived militaristic approach to public order policing. Another project worth a mention is the Frontline Service Delivery Project, which is currently being piloted in 9 police stations, in other words, 1 police station per province. The key objectives of the project are to ensure that police service points are accessible and standardized to adequately support professional policing, provide a professional and quality-based service to the people of South Africa, and to enhance engagement with all stakeholders in the fight against crime. The project is focusing on 4 critical dimensions of service delivery. It focuses on the individual as the employee, the physical touch points, in other words, the environment under which our people operate, the quality of services delivered, as well as stakeholders. Interventions undertaken to date include a dialogue with station and cluster commanders, as well as an engagement with Old Mutual Business Against Crime to solicit, and Business Against Crime to solicit support. The lessons from these 9 pilot stations will be rolled out to 500 police stations. Honorable House Chair, in the past few years, there has been a spate of service delivery protests around the country, which have stretched our capacity as the police to maintain order as mandated by Section 205, subsection 3 of the Constitution. A total number of 13,575 community-related protest incidents were reported and successfully stabilized. These incidents arose mainly from unrest-related incidents, such as labor disputes in the mining sector, education and transport sectors, and dissatisfaction with service delivery by local municipalities. Of the 13,575 incidents, 11,668 were conducted peacefully, and 1,907 turned violent, which led to the arrests of 2,522 individuals. We'll continue to attend to these community protests with vigilance as we have done in the past, with the sole intention of ensuring that we secure property and life of all South Africans. We also appeal to community leaders to exercise responsible leadership which ensures protection of property and human lives. It is important to note, as in the words of Ernest Barker, that, I quote, "The claims of liberty have to be adjusted to those of equality, and the claims of both have also to be adjusted to those of cooperation," close quote. One of the fundamental tasks is to contribute to the strengthening of the criminal justice cluster. On the 22nd of July 2010, the President mandated the JCPS cluster to create an anti-corruption task team to fast-track the investigation and prosecution of cases of corruption. We have, in partnership with our colleagues in the Justice Cluster, managed to apprehend and prosecute suspected criminals involved in organized crime. We have established a national task team with the JCPS cluster in line with the 7-point plan to oversee the rollout of community safety forums. The community safety forums are managed and coordinated by the Civilian Secretariat for Police. We have currently established 125 CSFs in the 278 municipalities, and the remaining community safety forums will be rolled out in the current financial year. One of the biggest threats to social stability and economic growth in South Africa is the question of organized crime and drug trafficking. As the Majesty Isilo Samamandla Onke King Goodwill Zwelithini Ngabheka Zulu puts it, that the best way to destroy a nation is to kill its youth. And that is exactly what drugs do. As a society, we should all understand that organized crime and drug trafficking is part of an ideological onslaught against the people of South Africa. In the period under review, through the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, known as HAWKS, we have registered the following milestones. 38 clandestine drug laboratories were dismantled and will continue to focus in this area. We arrested 169 individuals for illegal purchase, theft, and possession of uncut diamonds and unwrought precious metals. A further 927 suspects were arrested for illicit mining. We have smashed the suspected syndicates for dealing in drugs between South Africa and Tanzania. We arrested 1,218 persons for organized crime and 828 were convicted. We arrested 254 persons for drug-related crimes with a value of 103 million rands. Commercial crime is the most treasonous crime that a human being can ever commit against the state, as it deprives the country of its legitimate tax base. We have recorded the following milestones, amongst others. 6,187 new cases were received, with 3,888 suspects charged, with a 2,142 conviction rate achieved. We smashed counterfeit card fraud syndicates, as well as gangs operating an advanced fee scheme infamously known as 419. We've also made cybercrime an area of focus and have a number of successes, including the arrest of more than 180 individuals. In combating this phenomenon, DPCI established digital forensic laboratories to collect and analyze evidence. DPCI will continue to capacitate and develop resources required to meet the evolving criminal standards. Excuse me. Central to these efforts is beefing up our forensic ability. This is why, together with other government agencies, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector, we hosted the first National Forensic Services Conference in July 2013, the first of its kind on our continent. South Africa became the 57th country to assent to legislation that provides a framework to obtain DNA samples from arrested persons and offenders. This forensic DNA capability is a huge step towards a more effective system which would lead to a quicker exoneration of the innocent, detection and conviction of perpetrators. As part of the gains in the fight against crime, a total number of 2,785 suspects wanted for serious and violent crimes have been traced and arrested during the period under review, including crimes such as murder and aggravated robbery. The National Development Plan further dictates to us as the police to have an integrated approach to safety. Our approach in addressing this matter will be evident in how we integrate our activities with those of other entities of the state, private sector organizations, labor, non-governmental organizations, as well as other interest groups. We will continue to foster relations with the private sector in the fight against crime and corruption. We have in the reporting period, the Honourable Chair processed the SIRA Amendment Bill through Parliament with a view to manage and regulate the private security industry better. The bill seeks to introduce significant changes regarding ownership of private security business by foreign nationals, while at the same time improving governance of the authority and addressing the funding of the entity through funds that are appropriated by Parliament. The Private Security Industry Levies Act will also be tabled for review in order to align it to the changes that took place since it was enacted. The private security industry currently employs over 485,000 security officers and has over 8,100 active security businesses. This industry is by far one of the leading suppliers of entry-level jobs in the South African labor market, with an estimated turnover of over 50 billion rands.
Honourable Minister, you have 2 minutes left to complete your speech.
Improved operational efficiencies have accelerated industry service delivery and, as a result, helped the entity to improve its registration average turnaround time from 180 days to 19 days. Our efforts working in partnership with communities will still be continued in the financial year. We are working on a strategy to revitalize our community policing forums with a view to increase their capacity to assist the police in the fight against crime. The training and resourcing of the CPFs will form part of our plans in order to ensure that they become a meaningful stakeholder and resource in the fight against crime. In wrapping up, Honorable Chair, precisely because we are building a united front against crime and corruption, it is for this reason that we have already started to establish relations with academic and research institutions with a view to develop our capacity as an organization to deliver on our mandate. These interactions will go a long way in ensuring that strategy, policy, and legislation are based on research and factual information derived from some of these inputs. We also take this opportunity to salute women of our country as we approach the month of August, the month in which we pay homage to the sacrifices of our mothers and sisters in securing freedoms that we now enjoy. It is no coincidence that, therefore, the SAPS as an organization that has mainly been male-dominated is now under the command of a woman of stature. We will in August announce a number of initiatives that will expand the role and opportunities for women to play a crucial role in policing. It would be amiss not to mention the good work done by the Women's Network in the police and the important voice that they have become. Our efforts, Honorable Chair, are about honor and dignity as we contribute towards a state, as Socrates would put it, a state based on wisdom, courage, discipline, and justice. We should rally all our sectors of our society in the fight against crime and corruption, as this would only define our human existence. We must do so that indeed, as Aristotle puts it, we must do that which, quote unquote, answers to the whole of goodness, being the exercise of goodness as a whole towards one's neighbor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Beekman.
Honourable House Chairperson, Honourable Minister Kleku, Deputy Minister Suchu, MECs, Honourable Members of the House, fellow South Africans. The Portfolio Committee on Police received briefings from SAPS on the 2014-15 budget on 3, 4 and 5 July 2014. Briefings were also received from the Independent Police Investigative Directorate on 4 July 2014 and the Civilian Secretariat of Police on 8 July 2014. The briefings were preceded by input from civil society and trade unions. The report with relation to these three entities was adopted by the committee on Friday, 11 July 2014. Apart from the findings and observations that were made, firm recommendations were adopted by the committee. In the case of the SAPS, 28 recommendations were made. With relation to the Civilian Secretariat, 14 recommendations, and in the case of IPID, 16 recommendations. I want to thank all members of the committee for their contribution during this process. The recommendations are in line with the key priorities of the NDP with respect to building safer communities. Namely, 1, strengthen the criminal justice system. 2, make the police service professional. 3, demilitarize the police service. 4, build safety using an integrated approach. And 5, build community participation in community safety. The Portfolio Committee will monitor the responses and implementation plans from the three entities on the adopted recommendations. Honourable Chairperson, reflecting on the last 20 years of democracy, the ANC recorded in the 2014 January 8 statement that the politically inspired violence that engulfed many parts of our country before 1994 was brought to an end. Overall levels of serious crimes have been reduced. We are working together to transform our security and judicial system to ensure they reflect the national and gender character of our country. Over the last 5 years, progress has been made in reducing the levels of serious crimes such as murders, aggravated robberies, crime against vulnerable groups, especially women, children, and people with disabilities. Key targets for the MTSF period include a 2% reduction in the number of reported contact crimes, an increase in the percentage of citizens who feel safe walking alone during the day from 86% in 2012 to 88% in 2019, and at night from 37% in 2012 to 39% in 2019 as measured by Statistics South Africa surveys. An increase in the percentage of the households who are satisfied with the police in the area from 62% in 2012 to 70% in 2019. Honourable Chairperson, the clarion call is indeed that all people in South Africa must be and feel safe. The ANC therefore welcomed the approach emphasized in the SAP strategic plan as part of the JPS cluster, namely reducing the number of all serious crimes, contact crime and trio crime, increasing activities to prevent and combat crime, increasing the number of court-ready dockets for all serious crime, contact crime and trio crime, increasing the detection rate for all serious crime, contact crime and trio crime, including organized crime and the crime against women and children, increasing the conviction rates for all serious crime, contact crime to services by bringing SAP service points closer to the community. Two pivotal priorities indicated by the Minister of Police today relate to the professionalization of the SAPs and demilitarization. In a 1993 discussion document, the ANC outlined the movement's vision for a democratic police service. It called for the transformation of what he saw as a militaristic, secretive, unaccountable, racist, and violent institution. In its place, the ANC envisaged a democratically representative, local accountable, and visible, non-political service focused on prevention and problem solving. In 2014, the focus should be to further sharpen our priorities to ensure that we reach this goal. Professionalism, as described in the literature, includes the following: a duty to serve, maximum preparation before entering service, training, constant improvement of skill and information, continual training, hard selfless work, guarding the profession's image at work and in private, and constant attention to self-discipline. The National Development Plan is clear about the professionalization of the police. In the short term, the Code of Conduct should be included in disciplinary regulations and performance appraisal systems, and conduct periodic checks on the level of understanding and practice of the code. A code of professional and ethical police practice should be developed, and members should be trained and tested. And all officers should undergo a competency assessment and be rated accordingly. The National Development Plan states that the professional police practice code should state that the officers' fundamental duties are in the Constitution. They are there to serve the community, safeguard lives and property without discrimination, protect the peaceful against violence and the weak against intimidation, and respect the constitutional rights of all to equality and justice. We believe that the establishment of the Police Academy at Paarl would contribute to develop training appropriate to the professionalization of the police. We welcome the community-based recruitment and selection strategy to minimize unsuitable candidates making it into SAPs. The caliber of new candidates who enter the SAPs should contribute to a new generation of policemen and women who is committed to the ideals of the 1996 Constitution, namely to act in accordance with the Bill of Rights and the law. The committee supports the demilitarization of the SAPs. It's in line with the National Development Plan. The revisit of approach and doctrine is vital. A police service that is trusted by the community, that should be the ultimate outcome. In a 2012 paper by Andrew Fall and Brian Rose on professionalism and the South African Police Service, they indicate that the SAPs must focus on ensuring members engage with the public, whether client or suspect, in a manner that encourages their acceptance as a neutral and legitimate authority. This can be encouraged by improving recruitment and testing and training, encouraging a culture of integrity, professionalizing the use of force, ensuring that police is integrated but not controlling of other social and community services, improving police communication and interaction with civilians. In the January 8 statement 2014, the ANC committed itself to the ideal that South Africans are safer and feel safer and will further reduce the levels of crime and increase the capacity of our police and criminal justice system. Working with communities to make our neighborhoods and cities safer, especially through strengthening the anti-crime awareness and introducing stronger legislation to combat substance abuse. The President of the Republic mentioned in his 7th State of the Nation address delivered on Tuesday, 17 June 2014, that the current administration will prioritize and address safety in schools and will continue to fight drugs and substance abuse in schools and communities. The National Development Plan highlights that all schools should have learner safety plans. The SAPs have been engaging in school safety initiatives, notably the Safe Schools program, to ensure that schools, parents and communities join the SAPs to work in partnership to ensure safety schools. The Safe Schools program focuses on drugs, crime and violence in primary and secondary schools. School-based crime prevention coordinators visit schools and facilitate the creation of awareness on the negative impact of drugs. Schools are encouraged to establish and maintain safe school communities comprising of internal stakeholders of the school, learners, educators, school governing bodies, and school security personnel and external stakeholders. The ANC resolved at its 52nd national conference, that community safety forums should play a vital role in campaigns around peace and stability issues. The National Development Plan actions increased community participation in crime prevention and safety initiatives. Safety audits should be done in all communities, focusing on crime and safety conditions of the most vulnerable in the community. The ANC wants to call on all learners, students, parents, teachers, and CPFs and communities to participate in this initiative. Community participation is essential to promote community-centered policing. Honourable Chairperson, the changing face of society requires all institutions to evaluate on a constant basis the ability to deal with new realities. We believe that it's vital that the capability of the state to investigate and prosecute violent conduct in public protest be strengthened as a matter of priority. The Portfolio Committee on Police resolved that SAP should prioritise the strengthening of the public order police units as soon as possible and fully integrate crime intelligence capabilities in the activities. The budget allocation for SAPs in the 2014-15 financial year is 72.5 billion. Visible policing receives 37 billion, and the sub-CRIP program specialised interventions 2.7 billion. The Portfolio Committee will monitor the progress with the strengthening of the police order public police units on a quarterly basis. Incidentally, this is one of the ministerial priorities, namely continue to strengthen public order policing to ensure that human rights are protected at all times when policing community protest. The legislative architecture that is in place to promote an accountable and professional police service includes the IPID and the Civilian Secretariat. Both these institutions have the necessary legal framework in place to fulfill their duties. The Treasury made an allocation of 234 million and 99 million respectively to the IPID and Civilian Secretariat available. We need to see in the outcomes of these two institutions that they implement their legislative framework in full and they contribute to a police service that operates in accordance with the Constitution and the law. We need to see better collaboration and coordination. We need to see action. In ensuring that there is also an adequate legal framework and appropriate roadmap for policing in the future, all role players are awaiting the white paper on policing, the white paper on safety and security as part of the review of the SAPS Act. Proper consultation and effective input from the citizenry and interest groups would be a prerequisite for the success of the process. The review of the SAPS Act would be a major priority of the Portfolio Committee on Police during the lifetime of the 5th Democratic Parliament. We will have to take stock of what have worked since the implementation of the 1995 Act, what have not worked, what must be improved, and what new innovations must be included. The recommendations of the NDP and other policy imperatives already referred to would guide us during the important process. The finalization of the said documents and legislation will undoubtedly contribute to the strengthening and modernization of proper police conduct in South Africa. Finally, a word of thanks to the Committee Secretariat, Content Advisor and researchers of the Portfolio Committee on Police for their hard work and dedication. Voorsitter, ons as Suid-Afrikaanse nasie moet ook vanoggend ons afgryse uitspreek oor die wrede moord op die 4-jarige Tugrin Morris wat deur skobbejakke verboor is. Dis 'n afgryslike daad en in stryd met waarvoor ons as 'n Suid-Afrikaanse nasie staan. Ons wil graag ons innige simpatie en sterkte namens die komitee in die parlement uitspreek aan die Morris familie en die gemeenskap van Debron Park, Boksburg. Ons vertrou dat die nasionale kommissaris en haar span alles moontlik sal doen om te verseker dat die booswigte wat hierdie verraderlike daad gepleeg het opgespoor word en die volle gereg mee te doen kry. Het is baie belangrik dat morele regenerasie moet 'n prioriteit wees. En dit is nie die taak van die polisie nie, maar van alle gemeenskappe om te verseker dat ons opstaan teen hierdie optrede deur enkelinge in die gemeenskap.
Honourable Member, you have 2 minutes left.
We also want today, Chairperson, want to pay tribute to those members of the SAPS who have died and paid the highest price in the fight against crime since the last budget vote debate. We want to extend our condolences to their next of kin. They need to be honoured. They need to be remembered and revered for their contribution to a safe and more secure South Africa. Communities should support the police, men and women who fight to keep their communities free of crime. They are part of the community. The ANC supports the budget votes for police, vote 25, and IPID, vote 23. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Kola Barnard.
Thank you, Chair. No, I won't take any questions. Chairperson, currently our SAPS is to our citizenry what Germany was to Brazil in the FIFA World Cup. They're not beating us, they are burying us. And as such, I am deeply grateful that we have a new minister, and equally so that we have a new chairperson. This new minister has inherited a shambles, with 150 million in fruitless and wasteful expenditure being just the tip of the iceberg that threatens to sink the whole ship. As for the previous minister, I trust he has more luck with ballet than he had with bullets, and that he quickly works out that a grand jeté doesn't refer to another fun-filled, taxpayer-funded private airline trip. Thankfully, with a cut in budget from 73 billion down to 3 billion, he'll have a lot less loose loot to squander. Chair, I must commend this new minister for allowing the questions I put to him to be answered in full. No sarcasm and complete disclosure made a welcome change. But I can't but wonder how it is we find him in this exalted position. I looked at his slim CV, and it took me a while to dig out some background information. He seems to have left school somewhere in Standard 9 and has no further education, yet he mysteriously ended up as the DG for Labour. Now, I do know he had a shot at being an acting municipal manager till they found out he did not have the relevant qualifications, but it all came together when I saw he was appointed the Regional Commissioner of Correctional Services, KwaZulu-Natal,
on a point of
who then
order.
advocated for the parole
Honourable
of
Member,
number
Honourable
one.
Kola Barnard, there is a point of order. Yes, Honourable Minister.
Is it parliamentary for an honourable member to reflect on the competence to hold office of another member?
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Indeed, Honourable Kola Barnard, it is not parliamentary to reflect. That should be done through the form of a substantive motion to the House. The integrity of the minister is not under discussion at the moment, and I want you to desist from doing so, and also to withdraw the remark that you've made.
Which particular remark, sir?
The remark about the integrity and the competence of the minister.
I have not commented on his integrity at all.
Can you just withdraw the remark that you've made in
I
terms
will.
of...
I'm happy to
Honourable
withdraw it.
Member, will you just withdraw, please?
I'm happy to withdraw if you just
Thank
tell me
you.
what to withdraw.
Well, you've said quite a few things that I've listened to, that
Okay.
the Honourable Minister has raised in his point of order, and I want you to withdraw
Okay,
it,
this
please.
has all been in the media, so
Can you
I'm
withdraw it,
quite happy
please?
with
This is
that.
not a media house. Can you withdraw, please?
Okay.
Order, Honourable Members.
As you wish, I'll withdraw whatever it is you want me to withdraw.
Just withdraw unconditionally,
Withdraw.
please.
Sure,
Thank you.
unconditionally. When this minister was the Regional Commissioner of Correctional Services, he advocated for the parole of number one's financial advisor and benefactor, Shabir Sheikh. So this is the very man who signed off on the release of the never been ill a day in his life golf-playing, whiskey-swilling close friend to the president. Now, it was after that that this minister was then deemed suitably qualified to be a DG and today earns a minister's salary. This minister's inherited an entity which on the books looks effective, but I could take him by the hand to 153 stations without toilets, running water, electricity, or all three, to stations where the rain pours through the roof, or those with working vehicles or few working vehicles or plenty of vehicles and no driver's licenses, to stations where the police members round up cattle and demand a fee from the local subsistence farmers for their release. I could show him where to source some of the money to renovate a station or two, starting with the man who was the first non-police political appointment to National Police Commissioner, Jackie Selebi. We're still feeling the effect of his disastrous term, and what he did to the SAPS and to our reputation abroad is immeasurable. As for the money, according to Treasury Regulations 12.7.1 and 2, he should have started paying the taxpayers the over 17 million rand 30 days after he lost his appeal. Yet it's been 3 years and we've not seen a cent. 17 million could pay the salaries of over 200 constables for a year. It could pay for more officers on the streets, provide vehicles at stations, bulletproof vests where there are none, or much-needed crime-fighting resources to those men and women whom he embarrassed. Or even build a station, so our members aren't found working from their cars when they're locked out once again because the Department of Public Works has forgotten to renew the lease. Or perhaps the money could be used to help the SAPS air wing, as more than half is sitting gathering dust, with 6 of the aircraft grounded since before December 2012. Probably the Robinson R-44s bought for the World Cup but never used. I've asked over and over about the matter, but the National Police Commissioner has seemingly had no success. The cynicism of the South African public in terms of our SAPS began around the time Jackie Selebi was sentenced to 15 years after being found guilty of corruption, spent just 229 days in a hospital ward, and was released because he was on the verge of death. He wasn't, obviously. Shabir Sheikh wasn't either, and he's seen playing golf and dining out regularly in Durban. Then, of course, I could show the new minister what destruction was wreaked in the SAPS by the now Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Becky Cele. I welcomed his sacking as National Police Commissioner on the 12th of June 2012 after the Public Protector found his actions were, quote, improper, unlawful, and amounted to maladministration. The Malia Police Board of Inquiry recommended that criminal charges be considered as he was guilty of gross misconduct. So we laid charges, yet he's now a colleague in the ministerial benches, and the SAPS
Chair,
has somehow in the
point
past
of
2
order.
years found it impossible.
Honourable Minister, what is your point of order?
It is my understanding that the rules require that in our debate we're relevant to the topic. My understanding is that we're debating
Honourable
the
Minister,
budget,
please.
Honourable
that
Minister,
this is about parole systems, got
Honourable
nothing to do
Minister.
with police.
Honourable Minister, that is not a point of order. Continue, Honourable Member.
Nor is it correct. So, we laid the charges, and 2 years down the line, the SAPS find it still impossible to investigate them. The Minister will find a question from me in his inbox about the matter. I should show this new minister footage of Andries Titane being murdered as SAPS members shot him at blank range on TV Live, or Mido Masia being dragged off to his death. But I could equally take this minister to pearls of perfection, scattered about the country where the police are admired and supported by the locals, who in turn are cared for by them in the way in which we thought police should work when we changed them from a force into a service. They have managed to hold on to that which we admire in the SAPS, despite the second fired NPC militarising the entire structure just so he could be called a general. I must point out that this title of general is one he bizarrely demands to be called still today, when he was stripped of both the title and everything that went with it when he was fired. He isn't a general. He has no right to use that title, even in the New Age newspaper. I could tell the Minister the tale of Richard Mdluli and his suspension, and the suspension of the next acting head of crime intelligence once he pressed charges against the current NPC and her close confidant, the PPC of the Western Cape, after she allegedly recorded warning him he was under investigation. Now, the latest head of the IPID is investigating this very matter, and as such, I have every confidence it will be swept under the carpet. There are only 2 original members of the Police Portfolio Committee left, and along with her, I voted for the current chair when he took over as the head of the ICD, now the IPID. I do trust the man, and I'm sure one day the truth of why he resigned on the day of the Marikana massacre will emerge. That massacre, and who will be the scapegoat for it, has been much in the news. I'm sure the lessons the new minister will learn from the commission as we all watch the former minister wriggle like a fish on a hook, trying with all his might to justify his actions while convincing his accusers he's in no way to blame, will guide him when he lies awake at night wondering which way to jump. By now, the new minister will have learned we have 1,448 convicted criminals in the SAPS. One of them a Major General, 10 brigadiers, 21 colonels, 10 majors, 43 lieutenant colonels, 163 captains, 84 lieutenants, 716 warrant officers, 267 sergeants, 129 constables, and 4 staff. So nearly all of them have been promoted up the ranks, despite their being, on the whole, murderers and rapists. Most of them work in the Eastern Cape, but 64 of them work in the SAPS head office. There are probably many more criminals in the ranks. The audit was inexplicably stopped at the end of 2010. Chairperson, it seems finally having admitted to the criminality, it would have been easy to apply the SAPS Act and boot them out, but the NPC and her staff blundered the affair so the unions could stop the firing of this evil bunch of criminals in our midst. I could introduce the new minister to outstanding police in every single province, police who would take a bullet for either of us, but equally I could point out the fault lines where the failings are many relentlessly highlighted in the committee report. Chair, I could explain to the new minister how South Africans don't believe a word of what's said during the annual release of the crime stats circus, especially as the figures were fiddled so amateurishly last year by his predecessor. The sad truth is there are thousands of disillusioned SAPS members who've achieved extraordinary things yet have never been promoted. The
On another
logical
point
and
of order,
progressive
Chair.
career
I really
paths.
hate to do this.
Honourable Member, Honourable Minister, what is the point of order now?
A reflection on the minister's predecessor, who's still a member of this House, of this nature is grossly unparliamentary.
Yes, Honourable Member. Is it on the
Chairperson?
same point?
Yes, on
Yes.
point 47. This honourable, or rule 47, this honourable minister is now really making it difficult for our member to finish his speech. Can I ask the minister to refrain from making silly points of order?
Okay. Order, Honourable Members. Order. Order. Honourable Kola Barnett, we have stopped the clock, so we're not eating into your speaking
That's
time. You
fine.
will have
Would
time
you
to
like me to
conclude
sit on
your debate. I heard the remark that was made in terms of the former Minister of Police wriggling like a fish on a hook. And I think that is unparliamentary, Honourable Member. You must withdraw that remark.
Certainly. My
Thank you.
pleasure.
And then, Honourable Members, while points of orders are in place, it is the discretion of the Chair to decide and to rule when a member deliberately disrupt the debate and input of another member, and I will certainly do so, Honourable Member. You may continue, Honourable Member.
Chairperson, on a point of order.
Yes.
I would request that you review your ruling in terms of the member's parliamentary language. I believe that it is a misinterpretation on your part of Rule 66.
Honourable
which
Member, take your
provides-
seat, please.
Honourable,
Honourable
Chairperson,
Member, take your seat. I've made a ruling and I stand by it. Continue, Honourable Member. Order, Honourable Members.
Yes, I think I was referring at the time to the crime stats circus. Yes, the disillusioned members of the SAPS, experienced SAPS members, are today instructed to mentor 20-year-olds who are then promoted over their heads and for whom they must still do the job, grit their teeth and salute. Morale is at rock bottom, and while the minister's new department was scoffing 45 million in meals and swanning around in five-star hotels, comfortable in the reality that their children, lovers and relatives were being bounced up the ranks regardless of their lack of qualifications, our people were dying in increased numbers, 45 murdered each day. Indeed, while I give this speech, 3 people will be murdered and 25 women raped, and the chances of their killers and rapists being apprehended, successfully prosecuted and incarcerated are minuscule, because so few cases make it to court, and so often the cases presented are so weak they're laughed out the door. Sadly, this minister has yet to learn of his SAPS members who are so poorly trained that they wreck crime scenes, fail to collect evidence, destroy evidence, or even sell it. It may pay the new minister to ask why it is that in Gauteng, 70 officers have been dismissed for corruption, attempted murder, armed robbery, defeating the ends of justice, and assault, why another 173 were fired from KZN, and they are not part of the infamous 1448. They are fresh criminals. The question, of course, to ask is, how on earth did they get into the SAPS in the first place? Needless to say, our SAPS needs a comprehensive turnaround strategy. It cannot go on as before with political appointments, secretaries, drivers, lovers, and relatives of various bigwigs being bounced up the ranks to senior positions over the heads of those who've earned the positions through back-breaking hard work. Chair, this minister's predecessor shoved through poor, unconstitutional legislation such as the Hawks Bill, rejected now for the 3rd time by the courts, and the xenophobic CERA Amendment Bill, which allows for the expropriation of entire private security companies which have a head office elsewhere. Even if the President decides that South Africa doesn't need to be bogged down in the Constitutional Court and international arbitral tribunals, it's quite obvious that the aim is being achieved through the Home Affairs immigration regulations, which ensure any permanent resident working in any sector of the private security industry will not be allowed back into the country should he or she pop to Mauritius for a holiday. Neat trick. I could tell the Minister there were 0 dismissals in relation to the 13,000 lost SAPS firearms, that 96 million was spent on sending cops to South Sudan and Darfur, of the multi-million rand AVL SAPS car tracking system contract, lapsing because the now Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries signed the renewal 3 days after it expired, of our reservists turned away from the SAPS doors since 2008, now treated like trash via the new regulations, that 20% of detectives without the most basic of training, that just 3.3% of cops are trained in sexual offences, 27,000 cops with firearms but no licenses, 16,594 cops without driver's licenses, and as many cops with licenses but no vehicles. This Minister must know there are heroes in the SAPS, members who will put their lives on the line for us as members of the public on a daily basis. But equally, there are those who use the position to rob and rape, and that balance between good and the bad, has begun to tilt towards the bad.
You have
The
2 minutes left, Honourable Member.
Thank you. The plan to integrate the criminal justice system has been spoken about for a decade, perhaps 14 years, and the most the SAPs have been able to do to date is spend a huge amount of money and then fail at scanning and sending dockets to court. I have no option but to hope that now that the empty suit has sailed off into the sunset of his career, this new minister will prove to be more substantial. Unfortunately, the new minister has inherited no clear plan on how to tackle the main issue of police brutality. And while I have my reservations about his appointment, I trust his history of abusing his powers to the benefit of the President and his friends will be left behind him as he steps into this fresh new day. And if I have a few moments left, I'd like to say one more thing. In other countries, such as Germany, a family prays daily that their children will marry a doctor. And if they fail to marry a doctor, they pray daily that they will marry a police officer. That is how highly they are regarded in so many countries around the world. And I think we should all pray daily that our police officers come to be held in such high regard that every parent would want their children to marry one. Minister, I thank you. Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Twala is the next speaker. You may continue, Honourable Member. I've recognized you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Ms. Kolapana, that is a really hard act to follow, considering that one is new in this House. Thanks.
Honourable Member, can you just speak into the mic, please? I can hardly hear you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I was just saying, Ms. Kolapana, you did quite a great job. I cannot repeat or go back to what you've just said. Thank you. Honourable members and all protocol observed, it is perhaps imperative that we go back in history in order to understand how we got here, that which Ms. Kolapana has just alluded to. In the 1800s, diamond was discovered in the Northern Cape, thus resulting in the scramble for dominance of the area between the two contending colonial powers, the British Imperial Crown and the Dutch settler contingent. I will not dwell much on the tussle between the two, as it is adequately captured by history, but want to focus on the product it created, the economic system, which emerged driven by nothing else but the exploitation of the newfound source of wealth and the abundant but recalcitrant potential labor pool. A contract was devised by Cecil John Rhodes with the assistance of his Kahoos to facilitate the extraction of the quarry. The essence of the construct was to reduce the indigenous people into perpetual servitude, continually beholden to the system for survival through introduction of a myriad of laws aimed at eroding their freedoms in the land of their ancestors. The construct took a variety of mutations over the years of our subjugation. The NDP, upon which the proposed budget is anchored, is another mutation of the same construct as created by Cecil John Rhodes, and the outcomes will continue to remain the same. This is epitomized by the conduct of Central and Gauteng with the support of the municipal police, the criminalization of the communities using the roles they paid for, All this in the quest for creating a national patriotic bourgeoisie. Similar calls are beginning to emerge, agitating for the boost in the numbers of the public order policing units to quell.
I remember, Twala, sorry, I get an impression that we're not hearing you properly. If you can just lift up that mic so that all of you are able to hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or speak into the mic much better. Thank you very much.
Okay. This is epitomized by the conduct of Central and Gauteng with the support of the Union Police, recriminalization of communities for using roads they paid for a long time ago. All this in the quest for creating a national patriotic bourgeoisie. Similar calls are beginning to emerge at the taking of the boost in the numbers of the public police, in the public order policing units to quell civil unrest engulfing the country. Honorable members, the point being missed here relates to the construct. No amount of cosmetic application can change its outcomes. The proposed civilization of the police by the Commissioner will come to naught, as this does not speak into the actual causes of crime, which are socio-economic by nature. This fallacious belief is further exposed by the levels of corruption in the ranks of the SAPS, primarily because they too, as human beings, we believe, continuously yearn for a better life that remains out of their reach. They have dreams too, inspired by what...
You still have 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Chair, this reflects itself in the quality of detective work, which has always been a challenge, thus resulting in poor investigative outputs, leading to case dismissals in courts. On the IPID, there doesn't seem to have been a proper and adequate handover from the former directorate, as evidenced by the report of the current leadership. In their presentation, they alluded to very critical tools and an enabling capacity as underspent items. The question, therefore, Honorable Chairperson, would be, how do they make up for the shortfall? We acknowledge the commitment made by Mr. McBride that they will use their spare time to cover the said items. However, we remain skeptical that, as a consequence of inadequate resourcing, they may face difficulties. The other issue relates to staff turnover in the directorate, mainly attributed to low salaries. Seemingly, once the members of staff have been trained by the directorate, private companies poach them. However, there isn't any meaningful remedy on the offing. We would want the director to come up with recommendations on ways to keep the brain drain. The establishment of specialized unit, we urge for the establishment of specialized units to deal with the specific crimes, resource with adequate skills in their areas of expertise, not only on high-profile cases. We usually see on high-profile cases resources thrown in and the best of the police assigned to such cases, but would rather prefer the established specialized units that would serve all citizens so as to facilitate equal treatment. The fight against crime should be driven by intelligence generated from the intelligence division, which is unfortunately mired in controversy.
Sesiphelile-ke isikhathi baba.
Thank you.
Siyabonga. Ilungu elihloniphekile ubaba uMcwango is the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, Mr. Minister, for being appointed the new Minister of Police. The task ahead of you is very daunting indeed. The IFP is gravely concerned, Mr. Minister, about criminality within the police service. The state of our police service is disheartening, and many communities in our country have lost faith in the ability of the police to protect them. Officers continually arrest their own members who have been colluding with criminals or who may be criminals themselves. Trusting the police to do their jobs is a difficult thing to do because even dockets are not safe in some police stations. The IFP is on record, Mr. Minister, for its opposition to the civilian leadership of the police service. Our police officers themselves are in dire straits, as there is a complete lack of strong leadership in the police service. The civilian leadership tasked with leading the police is not appointed from within the police service itself as a natural progression for upward mobility based on merit and experience, but it is imposed from outside. There have been many glaring weaknesses in the civilian leadership, beginning with Mr. Jackie Selebi, the former commissioner, followed by the former commissioner, Mr. Peggy Shoot to Kill Kele, and now with Umama Uriapiecha. They all could not and can't lead the police. This is not a reflection on their general abilities, but the police service is a specialized field. Leaders to lead the police need to come from amongst their ranks. The civilian leadership is not taken seriously by the police force because they have no experience and cannot relate to what officers go through on the ground. If people you lead do not respect you, you are not leading anyone. The Marikana massacre was a clear demonstration of what happens when the police are completely leaderless. Corruption in the police service, Mr. Minister, is another enormous challenge that you have to overcome. There is a proverb that says, fish starts rotting from the herd. And in this case, it applies to the police service leadership. With Mr. Jackie Selebi conniving with big criminals, how can it not have affected the lower ranks? He was caught with his hand in the proverbial cookie jar, sentenced, and was released on suspicious medical grounds. Mr. Begi shoot to kill Kele was also removed from the leadership post under allegedly corrupt circumstances due to the recent scandal.
Unomzuzu owodwa osele. Ake sibuze nombuzo ke ngubani oshot to kill?
It's a nickname of one honorable
Where
member.
did he get that nickname from?
He gave it himself.
Chairperson, is it parliamentary to ask questions from the chair? No, it's not just continue, Chairperson. Really, on a point of order, this is not...
He has answered the question. Sit down.
I won't. Chair, it is not...
Would you mind to sit down? Member Mkwango did not have any difficulty with the question. He did answer the question. Sit down there. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, I want this please to be recorded. I don't want you to tell me to sit down. You cannot ask questions from the chair.
Mr. Honorable Mkwango has answered the question, no problem. He didn't have any difficulties. He is still on the podium. In fact, you have wasted his time. Continue, Mr. Mkwango.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in such circumstances, what could be expected of the lower ranks of the police service? What would raise their morale if their top leaders are not showing exemplary leadership? Some other consequences of the leadership void are clear. Police brutality statistics around the country are absolutely appalling. Police officers were involved in the attack and death of Mido Marcia, a Mozambican taxi driver killed in police custody in 2013. And recently, police were accused of beating to death a 21-year-old woman. And there are many more cases open against the police. It seems that there is a wave of police violence that has been unleashed on our citizens. South Africa needs a professional, highly motivated police service, not a police force, to fight the scourge of crime. It was wrong for the government to have allowed the former commissioner to pull the police back into its old military formation and approach to dealing with crime. Let us go back to the service.
Wind up, Mr. Mkwango, in 30 seconds.
Let us go back to the service mode and move away from a military approach to dealing with crime. The IFP supports the budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Honorable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, the Minister of Police, Deputy Minister of Police, the Chairpersons of the Portfolio Committee. Let me start off, first of all, by saying that the National Freedom Party wishes to extend its concern with the high levels of crime wherein South Africans are no longer safe. Honorable Chairperson, freedom cannot only be achieved if all South Africans live in a free, safe, and secure environment. Contrary to reports, Honorable Chairperson, crime is on the rise in South Africa. Never a day goes by having not heard of serious and violent crimes, including murder, rape, domestic violence, armed robbery, not being experienced by any members of the citizens of South Africa. However, Honorable Chairperson, let me commend the new Minister and the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and all members that were responsible in drafting the strategic plan and the progress they're hoping to make in making South Africa a free and safe South Africa for all of us to live side by side. Whilst we must acknowledge attempts are being made, or at least being talked about, the success rate still remains relatively low. Honorable Chairperson, whilst we have been making these suggestions and they're coming from the top, I must advise, Honorable Chairperson, that cascading this information from the top right up to the bottom seems to be a serious concern. When one enters a police station, what you see, what you experience is totally different to what we want to achieve for the people of this country, Honorable Chairperson. Let me go on further to say, Chairperson, you would be lucky if you got one telephone call from the detective, and you'll be very, very lucky, in fact, if you've got 2 telephone calls for detective, or if you ever meet detective after having lodged a complaint at a police station. Honorable Chairperson, community participation is at a minimal due to the lack of confidence and trust in police generally. Now, the question one needs to ask, Honorable Chairperson, why is this the case? The question is and the answer is very simple, Honorable Chairperson. It is as a result of the trust that they have lost because of fraud, corruption, and maladministration by police in general. However, Honorable Chairperson, I am confident that the 5th Parliament of the Republic of South Africa will be different from the previous 4 parliaments, and that there will be constructive engagement and there will certainly be changes that will address the needs and concerns of our South Africans in terms of the safety, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, let us not be misled by assuming crime rate is declining. On the contrary, many of them fail, Honorable Chairperson, to report these cases. As a result, one believes that it is coming down, Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, you have 30 seconds to wind up.
30 seconds. Oh, thank you, sir. In the 3 minutes is really a very little time. Honorable Chairperson, let me take this opportunity of saying to the Honorable Minister that we have trust, we have confidence. The lives of 52 million South Africans are in your safe and secure hands, and I hope that you will do your very best to endeavor that all South Africans live side by side in a safe and secure environment, and that the dignity, trust of the police force is reinstated. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My Minister, Minister Nhleko, and all ministers and deputy ministers present here, my Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Honorable Beekman, honorable members of Parliament, all MECs from provinces, National Commissioner of Police, Mepiecha, Secretary of Police, Executive Director of IPID, Ntate McBride, Chairperson of SIRA and the SIRA leadership present here, members of CPF, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Chairperson, our greatest icon, the late former President Nelson Mandela, once said, I quote, "Our achievements as the ANC-led government are very significant. We often fail to claim our victories. At the same time, however, it is the mark of a serious political movement and government that we are prepared to be open, honest, and self-critical where necessary," close quote. Today, on behalf of the South African Police Service, we as the Ministry of Police arise in front of all South Africans to proclaim that our organization, the South African Police Service, supported by the ANC-led government, has indeed for the past 20 years continued to fulfill and immediately fix where it fails in its constitutional mandate. Therefore, today, we will not be apologetic about the strides this Department of Police has taken thus far. Together with the police and the people of South Africa, we are to move South Africa forward and to unite all the South Africans against all types of crimes. We will not be ashamed to admit where we have not done very well. Most importantly, we will show vividly how we have been intervening to remedy those faults and shortcomings as the South African Police Service. Chairperson, the President has made 2 critical calls as per our electoral mandate, being we need to accelerate the implementation of radical socio-economic transformation, and central to this radical transformation agenda is the prioritization of youth empowerment and employment. We all know that more than 20 years ago, when our young black youth wanted to join the police force, they were refused solely because they did not have, among others, the driver's license. This strict requirement discriminated against these young people, in particular those who came from the rural communities, who wished and had a good potential to be a good police officer. We can now announce that the department has taken a conscious decision to waive driver's license as a requirement for enlistment in subs for a 10% of the new recruits. In addition, all members of the South African Police are now supported to have driver's licenses through the South African Police Service K53 program for the first time since 1913. Done at the subs Benoni and Bishop Levis sub-academies, which are also testing stations for the South African Police Service. In this instance, we wish to convey our sincere appreciation to SASITA, that is Sector Education and Training Authority, and our progressive business people, like the likes of Mr. Mpengesi, who have partnered with the South African Police Service to train about 1,000 members for the financial year 2013-2014. 1,500 more will be trained for the financial year 2014-2015. I talk about train on how to drive. Because in some instances, we complain about not having resources like cars at police stations. But when you go to police stations, you'll get a lot of cars standing outside. The problem is, some of these kids, when they were taken into the police, they did not have driving license, and then they had to get licenses any way they could get a license in order for them to get into the police. As a result, you give them a vehicle to drive to a scene, they will take something like 30 to 40 minutes just to reach a 5-minute destination because of the fact that they can't drive properly. The South African leadership always aligns itself with the conscience and soul of the nation, who is seeking desperately for employment and a better life in South Africa. Currently, Chairperson, the South African Police Service has over 40,000 reservists. Under normal circumstances, reservists are meant to be full-time workers who are employed somewhere else, who from time to time would volunteer their time to work and support the South African service in their operations. But the reality of the matter is 90% of the reservists that we currently have are unemployed, and thus solely depend on the stipend and intensives they get from local police stations. In some instances, they get from local MC's offices. As mandated by the Minister of Police to continue overseeing administration and visible policing programs of the South African Police Service, I actively support the notion that no reservist who has a good standing in terms of the law will be thrown out to the streets. It with this reason that the Minister and myself support the reservist pilot projects. Thanks to the Premier of the Free State, Premier Magashule, who came up with this concept. When a female doctor was raped 2 years ago in a hospital called Pilinomi Hospital, and it came up that the people of the perpetrator were non-South Africans. because the service that we get from private security industry sometimes, they get people who are not registered in the country, then it makes it very difficult for our police to get the perpetrators. Thank you very much for that idea. This project solely concerns itself with retraining the reservists as security guards to government buildings instead of using unknown and unvetted security guards. So far, 1,572 to be precise, reservists have been recruited and retrained, and they are all employed under the Public Service Act, not under South African Police Act, under the Public Service Act. Moving forward with this pilot project, we will further engage and invite other sister departments to partner with the South African Police so that all these 40,000 plus reservists are retained and employed as security guards for government buildings and to secure the outskirts of big malls, amongst others. So we will have to revisit the current national instructions on the reservist system and rectify issues of criteria. Chairperson, the partnership that the South African Police Service forged with the Department of Basic Education in 2011 has indeed become an epitome and the illustrator of the ethos of "Together we move South Africa forward" for the South African Police Service. After the formal protocol was launched on the 6th of August 2013, we have thus visited 5 provinces, starting with my own province, of course, the Free State, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, and Mpumalanga. In the process, bringing various stakeholders and government departments together to roll out school safety community outreach programs in all provinces. This program is helping raise awareness amongst children and young learners regarding crime and violence, substance abuse, satanism, and other social ills and their impact on individuals, families, and their education. We will also be strengthening community sectors with tools to hold us accountable and to ensure that these school safety programs become effective and sustainable. I will be approaching and requesting the Minister of Monitoring and Evaluation to assist us with the development of a user-friendly monitoring tool to quickly remedy the teething problems encountered by the rollout of this program, especially around our environment at school. In the same vein, this past 20 years have taught us that the challenges that we still face as government and as department are as great, and we do acknowledge that as government in general. And South African Police Services in particular, we do also acknowledge the challenges that we come across. We thus wholeheartedly commit ourselves as the Department of Police to the National Development Plan, Vision 2030, to proactively tackle our challenges head-on and without fear. I can safely say in this House, Chairperson, and to the public at large, that without this NDP Vision 2030, we would have not been able to identify, articulate, and remedy our mistakes and flaws
Deputy Minister.
as the South African Police Service.
Deputy Minister, you have 2 minutes remaining.
I'll get speed here now. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think, Chairperson, most of the issues has been alluded to by the Minister. Let me use my few minutes that are remaining to respond to some of issues that can be raised by people who don't understand what is happening. And unfortunately, it's because of the nature of environment that we live in. Because other people are living somewhere in Sandton or whatever. And when you talk about crime, you talk about something that we know how it happened. And some of us, it is very much amazing. But I'm going to talk in particular about crime in this province. Instead of police being supported in this province by the DA, They don't get supported. Hence, you discover that in each and every month, we do have more than 5 police officers who are being killed in this province because of the fact that they don't get support from the government of this province. Instead of taking the money, waste it on the commission somewhere in Langa, take that money and support the police and try
Point of order,
fight
Chair.
fighting a crime. Guys,
Deputy
I have
Minister,
a point of
just
order,
hold it.
please. Thank you.
What's your point of order, ma'am?
I would ask you to please check if the Deputy Minister is not totally out of line in that she knows full well that SAPS is a national competency.
What is the point of order, ma'am?
She's
What is the point of-
misleading the House, sir.
On what? On what point that she
She
has
is
raised?
making the claims that the Democratic Alliance government of the Western Cape is not protecting the police. And she's claiming that it's somehow a political problem when in fact the SAPS is a national competency.
Okay,
Which
okay.
point she's blithely ignoring.
Wa bona modula stulo. Ha ene le hore mapolesa re batla ho alaola mane national fela. Nke be re sena ntho e bitswang MEC ka hara province. Di MEC di mona ho sheba hore mapolesa a etsa mosebetsi ka tlela le hore ba supporta mapolesa ka hara province. Ha mapolesa le sa support a tla dula ntsa bolawa ana le mathata nang le ona. Tshwene ha e bone makopo ka Sesotho. Ke a o leboha modula stulo.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Can we just deal with one issue? Members, we all have a responsibility to see our country through. That is our responsibility. Let's just deal with one issue that has arisen. We would like to remind all members.
On a point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
Chairperson, I want to know if it is parliamentary for the chairperson to take part in the debate. It's the second time now that you are taking part in this debate.
Can you first hear me? Because you have not even heard what I'm saying. Can you please sit
I don't
down?
want to hear because
It's
you are
not a
not making
debate.
a speech. You
Can
are
you sit-
chairing the committee.
Honourable members, sit down, please. What I wanted to refer to members is that we should refer to one another respectfully. If we choose to use nicknames like we have done in the past debate by one member, where a member of this House has been referred to as shoot to kill, that might compromise the decorum of the House. Because that member is an honorable member of this House and his name is Honorable Member Bheki Cele. That's the issue that I wanted just to speak to. And that's what Rule 61 enjoins all of us to do. Thank you very much. That matter has been dealt with. The next speaker is Honorable Member Groenewald.
Agbare voorsitter, eintlik is hierdie 'n baie ernstige debat. En ek wil begin om te sê dat die Vryheidsfront Plus sal hier die 77 lede, manne en vroue wat gesterf het in die uitvoering van hulle pligte en volgens die jaarverslag en ook vir diegene wat hierdie jaar reeds die hoogste prys betaal het om ons as burgers van Suid-Afrika te probeer beskerm. Ons sal hier ook daardie lede, manne en vroue in uniform wat dit werklik nog hulle passie is om werk te doen om die gemeenskap te dien. Wat goeie werk doen. Maar agbare minister, u is nuut. U gaan nog baie ontnugterings ervaar in u tydperk. Ek wil begin om te sê dat die Vryheidsfront Plus verwelkom ook u antwoord wat u vir my gegee het wat ek nou in die nasionale vergadering gevra het in terme van plaasmoorde. Dat u die belangrikheid daarvan besef volgens u antwoord en dat u ook verklaar dat dit deel van die strategie van prioriteits misdaadbekamping in Suid-Afrika sal wees. Ons verwelkom dit. Maar, agbare minister, wanneer is 'n polisiediens 'n goeie diens vir sy mense? Dit gebeur slegs as die publiek vertroue het in die lede van die polisie. En dan wil ek vir u sê, agbare minister, as jy 'n koerant sien met hierdie opskrifte wat sê polisie skop en slaan gesin oor rybewys, dan wil ek vir u sê dit is skokkend. Want die publiek kan dan nie vertroue hê in die polisie nie. As ons gaan kyk na die statistiek volgens Oopot, die onafhanklike polisieondersoekdirektoraat, dan sien ons volgens die laaste jaarverslag dat 927 gevalle van, kan ons sê, geweld,
You have a minute.
van geweld wat gebruik is deur polisielede op die publiek. Ek wil vandag vir 'n beroep op u doen. Dit moet die absolute prioriteit wees. Dat die mense van Suid-Afrika hulle moet eintlik voel dat hulle beskerm word. They must feel that the police service are there or is there to protect them, not to attack them. Laastens wil ek sê, ek wil aankondig, agbare minister, dat die Vryheidsfront Plus vandag 'n klag gaan indien by die openbare beskermer vir die ondersoek na die regskoste van Jackie Celebi. Ek het verlede jaar in September al gevra, en ek vra al hoeveel jaar, wanneer word daardie geld terugbetaal? 17,5 miljoen rand plus rente moet terugbetaal word. Dis tyd dat hy moet begin betaal vir sy misdade. Ek dank u.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The next one is Honourable Member Mishwe.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The ACDP is concerned about the conviction rate that is so low in our country today. One of the reasons would be poor training that leads to poor investigations. Corruption in the police negatively affects the morale of those officers who are committed to protecting our people and doing their best to make our streets safer. Honourable Minister, I therefore plead to you to root out criminals and corrupt officers in police uniform. The ACDP is also concerned about the increasing number of police officers who are killed by criminals, some of them dressed in police uniform. The killing of Major General Tirani Maswanganyi last year is even more worrying because some corrupt police officers have allegedly been implicated in his assassination. It was reported that the late Major General Maswanganyi, who was a trusted and known corruption buster, was busy investigating cases involving corrupt police officers before he was killed. The man who pleaded guilty to killing this hero and great example in the community has implicated police officers who are reported to have been plotting to kill even the investigators probing Maswanganyi's death. Honourable Minister, please do not allow an undesirable new culture to develop where detectives and investigators would need protection from corrupt police officers in the SAPS itself. The ACDP says, purge all criminals in police uniform. There should be no mercy for police officers who commit serious crimes that include colluding with criminals against their own colleagues. What an indictment when a columnist says, and I quote, "When I'm driving at night and see those flashing blue lights, a fist of fear tightens around my gut. And the SAPS brand has been irreparably damaged for me. The trust is gone. And now I look at the police and the criminals and wonder if there is any difference, except some of them wear a uniform," close quote. How will community members who are always asked to work with the police know how to differentiate between a genuine police officer and a police officer who is a criminal?
Honourable Member Mishra, we have a minute.
My plea and my call to the Honourable Minister is to please clean SAPS to ensure that trust in the police by members of the communities can be restored and can grow because they are not involved in any acts of criminality. Many of today's newspapers have as their main articles stories of car hijackings involving children and also stories of rape. The most tragic story is about a hijacking that took place in Raga Park this past weekend. where hijackers drove off with a 4-year-old boy dangling from his mother's car as his foot was trapped in a seat belt. The hijacked car was found abandoned 1.5 hours later, 4 kilometers down the road, and the innocent child dead next to the car.
Sale, so ivala ke baba.
Okay. The ACDP wants to convey our deepest sympathy to Tegrin's parents, Chantel and Elwin Morris, as well as all their relatives and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next one will be Member Honorable Mulebatsi.
Mo tlotlegi Musa Khotla matona le batlatsa matona wa batlotlegang lefapha la tsa sepodisi ntlo le halahala e maloko a lona a tlotlegang baeng le ma Afrika Borwa ka kakaretso ntetlang bagaetsho ke le dumediseng nte mo boemong ba ANC ke le boge bagaetsho ba hlophi botlhe ba beleng batswa ka bontsi bo makatsang ka tsatsi la supa motsheganong wa ga ona o ba ya go tlhopha ANC gore e tswelele e buse Afrika Borwa me go bona rare le ka moso ba gaetsho. The national struggle for freedom was the critical overarching vehicle to bring about peace, security, and stability to our society. In dealing with issues of crime, the ANC proceeds from a premise that a rising quality of life also means improvement in the safety and security for the citizens in their homes and environment where they live, work, engage in extramural activity. As mentioned, the NDP states that the re-establishment of specialized units must be prioritized. The South African Police Service states that specialized units will be capacitated during the 2014-2015 financial year and across the medium term, enhancing the following specialized capabilities: narcotics, organized crime, commercial crime, tracking units, and vehicle crime investigations. The South African Police Service will also focus on enhancing the cybercrime capability, including the advancement of local police station readiness. Before I go further, let me say this to Honorable Kolabanat. I am looking forward to the day you'll stand up and list the good that is done by the South African Police Services, not only the negatives. It is very unfair to them, especially the hardworking ones, to the people who lay down their lives for me and you to can sleep. People who lay down their lives and sometimes even die for us. It is very unfair. Tokomani ya 8 January 2014 ya ANC itisa tshireletso ya bana khatlhanong le domestic violence me le go tlisa ntwa khatlhanong le go diriswa gampe ga bana le basadi ba naga ya rona. During the State of the Nation address delivered in June 2014, President Jacob Zuma noted that some progress has been made over the past 5 years in reducing the level of serious crime, such as murder, aggravated robberies, crime against women and children, and other vulnerable groups, but that they remain unacceptably high. The President further stated that the government will work to further reduce the levels of crime. Cumulatively, South Africa is reducing crime, and this is happening against the population growth. The Freedom Charter says, there shall be security and comfort. We urge the police to leave no stone unturned when dealing with criminals. Motlotlegi Musa Khotla, di kgolegelo tsa rona di Di tletse di a phuphuma. Ba golega ga ba tsena ba itsamaisa. Ba tshwere ke sepodisi sa rona. Ka jalo, re a sa akgola re le ANC. Ra re, tau tsa tlhoka seboka, re siwa ke none e tlhotsa. Contact crime is the biggest contributor to the total reported crimes. The contact is usually of a violent nature. The South African Police Services has had some successes in reducing serious crime over the past 9 years. However, contact crime increased in 2012-2013 financial year compared to the previous financial year, 2011-2012. Some of the noted crimes are as follows. Total sexual offenses reduced 10.9 over 9 years. Total sexual offenses reduced by 16.6 during the past 4 years. Total sexual offenses reduced by 0.4 during the past financial year. Murder reduced by 27.2% over 9 years. Murder reduced by 16.6 during the past 4 years. Murder increased by 0.6 during the past financial year. Attempted murder reduced by 51.7% over 9 years. Attempted murder reduced by 16.8 during the past 4 years. Attempted murder increased by 1.2 during the past financial year. I can go on and on and on. We as the ANC would like to commend the men and women in blue for the hard work. To them we say, unity is strength, and Ian Drach Makmach. Honorable Chair, as the ANC we call for a review of the Resource Allocation Guide, commonly known as RAC. When we visit the police stations, the number of visible policing members, detectives, and crime intelligence members have been insufficient to cover the intended serviced population. Of great concern is the type of vehicles allocated to different areas, e.g., a sedan allocated to a mountainous area, or a 4x4 allocated to an area with tarred roads. Motlotlegi Musa Khotla, ka ngwaga wa 2012, re le committee re ile ra nna le detective dialogue e nnileng le ditshitshinyo ke ra tsona di recommendations. Mme ya latela ke gore tona ya pele Motlotlegi Nathi Mthethwa a goeletse ngwaga wa Matseka, Year of the Detectives. Tsotlhe tse di dirile gore Matseka a ikatisiwe ka tshwanelo, mme ke fa go tlhatlhoga go tshwarwa ga basenyi. Re akgola sepodisi mme ra re ba tswelele ba dire ka natla. The Directorate of Priority Crime Investigation, commonly known as the Hawks, was established in terms of the amended South African Police Service Act to prevent, combat, and investigate national priority offenses. In this regard, the operational priorities of DPCI are focused on crimes such as corruption and serious economic crimes. Tokomane ya NDP gape e tiisa go aga Afrika Borwa e botoka, go aga gape le Afrika e botoka, le go aga gape lefatshe le le botoka. Nte pele ke tlo feleletsa ke mo re Motlotlegi Twala. Honorable Twala speaks of a confusion. I want to say to him, there is no confusion. The confusion is with him not wearing a red overall and gumboots and makarapa. That is where the confusion is, not with any other thing. Nte ke tse tšhono e go goeletsa le go lopa ba gaetsho rona nageng yotlhe gore a re thuseng sepodisi sa rona ka nako tsotlhe mabogo dinku a thibana Agbara Groenewald hierdie ANC regeer en hierdie ANC is die enigste politieke party wat meer as 100 jaar oud is. En dit is vir daardie rede dat hierdie ANC gaan altyd hierdie land regeer. Tot Piet kom. So sê die kiesers ook. Batho ba gabo rona batho ba ba tlolang molao ke bana ba rona bana ba ba tlolang le melao ke bana ba baagisane ba rona a re emeleng re ba senoleng gore re dire modiro wa sepodisi botlhofu gape a re tlogeleng go reka dilo tse di utswitseng. Indeed, South Africa is a better place than it was before 1994. Together with the ANC, we will move South Africa forward. The ANC supports this budget to make South Africa safer. I thank you.
May we now call upon Honorable Member Chichonga.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members. I want to tabulate or to list the good which you do, but it's not my duty. Mr. Minister, it's your duty to do so. The honorable members of Parliament on this side have said a lot of things which I'm not going to repeat, but Ahang is concerned about these three. Honorable Chair, just remind me when I have 5 minutes left. Okay, the tragedy in this world is not the bad people who do bad things because they know exactly what they are doing, but only the good ones who are appallingly silent when bad things are happening. The knife in the hands of a butcher is a good weapon or safe weapon, but in the hands of a robber or a tsotsi, it becomes a dangerous weapon. So is the firearm in the hands of mentally demented police. So all the police who are not doing their job in the context of rule of law and integrity must be rooted out. Trigger-happy police must be removed from the service. Ahang condemns the killing which happens outside the rule of law and integrity. Otherwise, you have good things which you are doing, but it's our duty to highlight. It's not criticism, it's observation. We highlight that so that you pay attention to that and rectify that. Thank you, Chairperson.
You still had a few remaining, but well, we are done now. Honorable Madisha is around, I don't see him. Honorable Member Mpele.
Ngiyabonga sihlalo. Ngibingelela ungqongqoshe nosekela ngqongqoshe usihlalo namalunga ekomiti nabahlonishwa bakhona. I would like to start by acknowledging the presence in the public gallery of my guest to this debate, Mr. Ralph Jansen, who is a resident of my constituency and the head coordinator of the Neighborhood Watch in Heidelberg. His tireless work as a community leader is an inspiring example of the important role that active citizens can play in increasing public safety. The work of the Heidelberg Neighborhood Watch underscores the importance of a whole-of-society approach that brings together government and communities in the fight against crime. I hope that Mr. Janssen's presence here today will remind us of the crucial need for partnerships that ensure greater security in communities and the fact that the police service itself needs to be a credible and trustworthy partner in those efforts in order to promote good relations between the police and the communities they serve. And I watched the minister's interview on A View from the House this morning, in which he echoed those sentiments, and I hope they'll be seen through to clear action. Chairperson, the National Development Plan identifies the professionalization of the police service as a key priority to ensure its competence and responsiveness. It was encouraging to hear the Minister and National Police Commissioner's reassurances during our budget briefing process that they were indeed committed to achieving this. A professional police service is not only essential to a strong criminal justice system that effectively deters and punishes criminality, but it is also vital to inspire confidence in the police service among the public. Without this confidence, citizens distrust and fear the police and are less inclined to report crime or offer cooperation in police work. On the score of public trust and confidence, we still have a long way to go before we can say that we have a comprehensively professional police service. A Human Sciences Research Council social attitude survey published in 2011 found that 66% of adult South Africans believe corruption to be a widespread problem in the police, with only 41% of those surveyed having some level of trust in the police. More worryingly, a Future Fact survey conducted in 2012 found that 35% of South Africans interviewed admitted to being scared of the police, with this figure rising to 40% in poorer communities. This, Chairperson, is not a good story to tell. It should be criminals who fear the police, not law-abiding citizens. These perceptions of systemic police corruption and attitudes of distrust and fear among the public are an indictment of the SAPS management's past ineffectiveness to ensure sufficiently strong accountability in the police service for misconduct and criminality. Without strong accountability measures to guarantee sanctions for wrongdoing by police officers, a culture of impunity takes root and thrives on the oxygen of systemic negligence. And as the Honorable Kola Barnard pointed out earlier, we've had many years of that starting from the top. Weak accountability, in effect, hinders progress towards the achievements of a professional police service. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate, or IPID, is designed to be the spearhead of such accountability measures to strike at the heart of a culture of impunity for police conduct and criminality. And unfortunately, so far, it has been off to a shaky start. The DA remains deeply concerned about vacancies in senior posts and past underspending in the institution, as this impedes the IPID's ability to function optimally. In addition, concerns linger that the IPID's overall budget allocation is insufficient for it to fulfill its mandate once it does reach operational full capacity. Like the Civilian Secretariat for Police, the department will need more money in future to advance the goal of realizing the professionalization of the SAPS through strong accountability. We trust that the Minister will consider these concerns seriously in future appropriations to minimize the risk of stagnation in the challenging process of transforming the police service to make its members more competent, ethical, and accountable. Chairperson, we welcome the U-turn that was made during a budget briefing by the IPID Executive Director that the institution has withdrawn its stated aim in this year's annual performance plan to seek a legislative amendment that would narrow its mandate to exclude common assaults because, open quotes, investigators were kept quite busy with these less serious cases, close quotes. This argument was deeply flawed and undermined the NDP's objective of a professionalized and accountable police service.
Honourable Member, Bella, you still have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. This argument was deeply flawed and undermined the NDP's objective of a professionalized and accountable police service, because it is precisely that caseload of assault complaints and many others for which complaints are not lodged, which feeds the perceptions and attitudes spoken about earlier, where citizens do not trust and in fact fear the police. And as a citizen myself who has been at the receiving end of abuse of power by the police, it would be untenable to think that we should ever allow such incidents to fall off the radar of the IPID's work. We were also pleased to hear that the IPID's reports on the investigation into the National Police Commissioner for allegedly tipping off the Western Cape Provincial Police Commissioner about a Hawks investigation of which he was the subject has been completed and sent to the National Prosecuting Authority for decision. The DA in the portfolio committees of both Police and Justice and Correctional Services will monitor progress on this issue very carefully, to ensure that the ends of justice are served and accountability is not undermined. This matter must be seen in the light of the NDP's imperative for a professionalized and accountable police service, and Parliament must play its role to help realize that. As we mark 20 years of freedom, let us not falter in ensuring that we increasingly secure for all citizens the right to live in freedom, freedom from fear, and freedom from violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. May we now call upon Member Make.
Thank you, Chairperson, my Minister and Deputy Minister, the National Commissioner, honourable members. The resolutions of the ANC Asset Mangaung Conference reiterated that South Africa must have a single police service. The resolutions also recognizes the fact that conditions of service in SAPS are not satisfactory and need attention at the lower levels. It goes further and says that the National Commissioner should ensure the implementation of general training, operational, and discipline standards in relation to policing to foster synergy, uniformity, and consistency throughout the Republic. The conference also noted that the transformation of the security departments has in the main been hampered by the middle managements that continue to resist change and targets progressive personnel for dismissal, and therefore the tools of transformation and employment equity should be directed at transforming the middle management of security services. The NDP also one of the documents from which the department derives its mandate states that we fall asleep without fear and listen to the rain on the roof, ensure that all people live safely with an independent and fair criminal justice. Chapter 12 of the NDP on building safer communities states as its objective, I quote, "In the 2030, people living in South Africa feel safe and have no fear of crime. They feel safe at home, at school, and at work, and they enjoy an active community life free of fear. Women can walk freely in the street, and children can play safely outside. The police service is a well-resolved professional institution staffed by highly skilled officers who value their work, serve the community, safeguard lives and property against violence, and respect the rights of all, the equality and justice. One of the actions for attaining this objective is the demilitarization of the police force and the training of all police personnel in professional police ethics and practice." Honorable Chairperson, having said all of the above as identified by my organization, which by the way is the ruling party in this country, and which represent the majority of our people in this country, the opposition need to be reminded that, as they are also South African citizens, we also serve their interests, whether they like it or not. If a question was asked in this House today and now, directed at the opposition, who of you would like to be a policeman or woman? Surely none of them would respond in the positive. If we ask ourselves this question, it will make us understand that being a policeman really is, being a policeman really is. Our men and women in blue are the first line of defense. And we therefore must acknowledge this and be proud of them. They get killed in the line of duty trying to protect us and make us feel safe. Therefore, we must all adopt a slogan which I'm told has been adopted by Mpumalanga province, which says, you kill a police, you kill the community. Notwithstanding the fact that in the past 5 years, progress has been made in reducing the levels of serious crimes such as murders, aggravated robberies, crime against vulnerable groups, especially women, children, and people with disabilities, crime levels remain unacceptably high, especially serious and violent crimes. The opposition need to be reminded. They consciously or unconsciously become nostalgic to the long past apartheid setup. Honorable Chairperson, during this time, crime would be very minimal or even non-existent in the protected white areas. This is the time of Group Areas Act, the period of permits for Africans, the period of Nachtpas, the period when just walking in town during the night was a criminal offense, which could land you in jail, where you could then be sold to farmers Epetal to dig Mazamba. Just walking in town during the night. Bana? On the other hand, we had a certain level of crime in the townships and villages. Most of the crimes committed against us in the townships was by the regime itself. Chairperson, I don't know if it will be parliamentary, but I need to say it. Some white vigilantes who would just meet you in the street and assault you. The crime being an open code for the vigilantes. Who comes just so swart and your hair is so kort as je mal, close quotes. This type of criminality was prevalent everywhere in this country at that time. It therefore stands to reason that this section of the population who were previously protected, having their own hospitals, bus stops, restaurants, swimming pools, toilets, would have a skewed understanding and perception of crime and its levels. Honorable Chairperson, crime impacts negatively on the country's socio-economic development and therefore undermines people's well-being and their ability to achieve full potential. This therefore means that the capacity of the developmental state requires immediate enhancement on areas of forensic detective, investigation, and prosecution services to reduce the high levels of crime and corruption. The 2010 up to 2014 strategic plan of the department identified, amongst others, a key operational and organizational priorities, the enhancement of detection services. This refers to the effective investigation of crime by improving detection and court-ready case dockets, rates, and serious crimes, increasing the capacity and professionalism of the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigations, and improving forensic services, and above all, the establishment of specialized units. The specialized units will help improve crime intelligence for serious crime, drug and people smuggling syndicates, and human trafficking. Though there were some problems with this division of SAPS, the National Commissioner has put the division under her wing in order to stabilize it. We therefore are expecting positive results soon. The specialized units will also address crimes against women and children. Honorable Chairperson, let me, however, point out that the firearms confiscated in Norwood, Johannesburg, was detected as a result of work that crime intelligence delivered. Let me say that the drug busts in KwaZulu-Natal have come from information that was provided by crime intelligence. Honorable Speaker, or Honorable Chairperson, the Crime Intelligence Division has generated over 37,000 reports in 2012-2013, 29,000 reports in 2013-14, and will generate another 32,000 operations during 2014-2015. Honorable Chairperson, our visible policing division is the biggest division in SAPS with over 106,526 members. We rely on these men and women in blue to do the right thing. Our main expenditure of the police budget is rightly with the visible policing at over 50% of the SAPS budget, which is for 2014-2015, will be over 37 billion. This is an increase of over 5.7% from 2013-14 financial year. The visible policing program has seen the mobilization of South Africans against crime through Izimbizos. This budget, honorable members, will go towards the crime prevention program, rail police, K9 units, mounted police unit, youth, children, and gender-based violence units, and the flying squad. The role of SAPS in securing our border is also funded from the same budget. Our special intervention teams, such as the police order units, public order police units that have been policing some of the service delivery protests through the country, are also being supported through this budget. This is why we have to invest in resourcing our police in making sure that they have tools to fight crime effectively anywhere in the country. Honorable Chairperson, the visible police program is a critical part of the success of SAPS. I want to say that if you consider what they deal with, over 1.8 million crimes throughout the country, over 175,000 crimes against women and children, and over 49,000 crimes against children. They have dealt with over 206,000 crimes for the unlawful possession and dealing with drugs. This includes over 76 kilograms of cocaine, 309,000 of Mandrake tablets, and 178 kilograms of tick. Honorable Chairperson, it is this government's priority, as enunciated in our State of the Nation address, that rural development is a priority of this government. We will make sure that our people in rural areas in all far corners of this country are and feel safe. That is why we have to make sure that the rural community receives support from the Rural Safety Plan. This is a plan we have to implement to make our communities safer. For the Honorable Groenewald, rural safety refers only to the protection of white farmers. He doesn't even think of the villages where our people live. Honorable Chairperson, the sector policing plan introduced by SAPS has already started to give us the result we want. To date, sector policing has been implemented in almost all the police precincts around the country, and there are only 185 stations left where we know that SAPS will implement the strategy. We have no doubt that the work of the Portfolio Committee on Police has demonstrated the accountability in action we require from the SAPS in order to take policing forward. Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, our fight against the abuse of women and children continues uninterrupted. We have fought for the reintroduction of family violence, child abuse, and sexual offense units. We have seen that in the last financial year, crimes against women and children have been reduced as a result of these units. We cannot stop and want SAPS to continue building on these successes. We have SAPS have reduced the number of reported crimes against women, decreased by 5% from 49,550 in 2012-13 to 46,825 in 2013-14. The opposition always talk about corruption. Let us listen to this from the horse's mouth about real corruption within the police force. Open quote. This is a quote from Eugene de Kock. Late one afternoon in December 1984, C2's Martin Node and I were summoned to head office by Brigadier Willem Schoon. He ordered each of us to file a false claim. As far as I can remember, one claim was for 46,000, the other for 48,000. After we had written out the claims, Schoon took both of them, and I didn't hear of them again. However, Schoon mentioned in passing that the secret funds budget had to be used in full. Otherwise, Parliament would not approve next time. Close quote. Honorable members, we expect that SAPS deal decisively with the corruption in its ranks. We are already seeing SAPS arresting their own colleagues who have engaged in corrupt practices. Our National Commissioner is already showing that the anti-corruption units are being reprioritized, and we support her all the way. I want to say that if we want to be free, we have to fight corruption. If we want to be free, let's clean our police force from the entire corruption element. Let's listen again, a quote from Eugene de Kock. Open quotes. For another example, and there will be many more, all the parties held at Flag Plus over the years, and the generals loved to attend this, were fully subsidized by false claims. Often 80 to 100 people were entertained at the functions. Other units from headquarters frequently used the facility at Flag Plus. They were also assisted financially, close quotes.
They're your members.
We have seen the dismissal of 1,017 police officers who has criminal convictions, and our National Commissioner has acted decisively by dismissing them. We have to call on our comrades in the unions not to defend these corrupt police officers. There's no place in SAPS for such officers. They should be investigated by IPID and the Police Directorate. Let's support our National Commissioner and clean up SAPS. I will leave you with another of the quotations from Eugene de Kock.
Sorry, members, it's okay, honorable members, no problem in interjecting, but please, let's not stop the speaker from speaking. Please.
The prime evil, Eugene de Kock. Open quotes. The incidents mentioned above are only the tip of the iceberg. Between 1985 and 1993, numerous claims were filed for Kukemur. I also had to file a claim of 20,000 on then Colonel Nikki van Rensburg's behalf. He told me that Commissioner of Police needed 20,000 to manufacture spears for Inkatha, close quotes. The opposition is complaining about the bill that seeks to regulate the private security industry. But the facts that brought about this amendment bill speaks for themselves. There are more than 445,000 registered security guards, compared to little more than 270,000.
Okay, just hold on. Yes, ma'am.
Agbare voorsitter, is the honourable member prepared to take a question from me?
It's
It's a very simple.
Mr. Groenewald, just hold it. Honourable Member Marke, are you prepared?
No.
Thank you.
There are more than 445,000 registered security guards, compared to little more than 270,000 armed statutory forces. That is the SAPS and SANDA, who in his or her right mind can allow such an anomaly in his or her country. 51%. This especially when the majority of the companies are owned by foreigners. This industry is vulnerable to criminal network. In 2008, 170,000 guards were vetted through SAPS Criminal Record Center. 14,729 were flagged as being linked to possible criminal activity. Chairperson, the ANC represents the majority of the South African population. It therefore means that the ANC is the people. The DA hates the ANC. And it is busy and it is busy teaching, or rather grooming.
Chairperson.
People like...
Just hold it, ma'am. Yes?
Member is lying, I don't hate him.
What is it, Honourable Ma'am?
I say the member is lying, I don't hate him, I love him.
No. Sit down, ma'am. Can we are in an august house here where all of us are expected to not to speak ill of anyone. Now we have said the member is lying. Now, if you can bring that through a substantial motion, no problem. But until you do so, can you withdraw the lying? Until you do so. Withdraw the lying until you bring a substantive motion in this regard.
Chairperson, I withdraw, but the member is really not lying.
Sit down, ma'am. Continue.
The DA hates the ANC. And it is busy teaching, or rather grooming, honorables like Didame and Honorable Maimani to hate the ANC. Simple mathematics tell me that if the DA hates the ANC and the ANC is the majority of our people, then the DA hates the majority and is busy grooming Maimani and Didame to hate the people.
Honourable Member Marke, you have 2 minutes so that you finish your speech.
Thank you. I want to say one thing. Honorable Kola Barnett, the kind of language that Honorable Kola Barnett is using in this house shows sheer arrogance. Arrogance of the last order.
Must be thrown out of the house.
And Honorable Mbele talked about impunity of the police. I've just quoted what the police force used to do. It was a police force. It was a police force.
Order, members, order, member. The member is on the platform.
what they used to do, if that is not impunity, then I don't know what impunity is all about. Honorable Kola Bernard talked about people earning positions that they don't qualify for. What she's actually saying, if we are going to talk about, according to her, those that qualify, would be those that were police during the apartheid state.
Point of order. Point of order.
Margaret,
Chair.
Honourable Member Margaret, just hold on.
Thank you.
Let's say a point of
I
order.
contend that this member is misleading the House. I have lists of names of members who have not received
Chair,
promotion,
may I
and
interject?
none of them belong to any previous regime.
Chair, may I interject? She is not raising a point of order.
I would ask to be called an honourable member, sir. Please,
Yes.
may I ask that I'm called an honourable member? She's not the cat's mother.
No, Honourable Member Kola Barnard, if you are referring to misleading, then that can be brought through a substantive motion so that we can debate that. Therefore, it can't be a point of order. Bring a substantive motion, then we'll be able as a House to see whether indeed there was misleading. Thank you very much. Continue, Mr. Member.
The IFP is talking about police brutality. I've just quoted Eugene Dicko about the 20,000.
On a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Let's hear your point of order, Honourable Member Mgong.
My counting tells me that the member has already exceeded his 2 minutes.
Mr. Mgong, can you sit down? That's not a point of order. Sit down. Honourable Member Marke, with your 30 seconds, can you sum up?
The NFP, I've never seen them in our committee. The same applies to Honorable Mishwe. I've never seen them in our committee, and
Thank you, Honourable Member Marke. Thank you very much.
thank you very much. The African National Congress definitely supports the budget.
We will now allow the Minister, the Honourable Minister, to respond to the budget, to the debate.
No, thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, for the overwhelming support for this budget vote. I would like to start on some few things. 3 years ago, there was a huge rumor and speculation about me becoming the National Commissioner of the Police. The Honourable Member Kola Barnard is on public record referring to me as advocate at the time. And they were objecting to the perceived or rumored appointment of Advocate level as the National Commissioner of the Police. Today, I left school at Standard 9. So that's an interesting contradiction on the one hand. But I thought that, Chairperson, let me just put this matter as just a matter of public record. Honourable Member Kola Barnard, I hold a Master's in Leadership and Change Management with the Leeds Metropolitan University in the United Kingdom. I also do hold what they call a National Diploma in Labour Law at an honours level with the Graduate Institute of Management and Technologies. So that matter is out there, and I do not know where you're actually looking on the one hand. If you want to have a debate, for instance, about what happened with matriculation, because it's not true that I left school at Standard 9. What happened with matriculation, for an example, it's a story that I'm sure you wouldn't like to hear. And they have, and of course, it will be a subject matter for another discussion, I suppose. So I thought, Chair, let me just put that on record. So try and look in correct places, Madam Honourable Madam Barnard. The one thing, honorable members, that I think we should all learn to do is to respect institutions that help us in observing the rule of law, for an example. You can't have a situation where you have an institution that processes a particular matter, and then it is said it's one individual who decided, for an example. You have professional bodies that process issues in this country. For an example, in regards to issues affecting corrections, you have an independent professional body called the Parole Board. You have medical practitioners, in this case that you're referring to, Honorable Bernard. You had 13 medical practitioners around that particular matter. Now, to have Mr. Ntlego, for instance, who's so powerful as to instruct the Parole Board as to what to do, as well as 13 medical practitioners, I think it will be a serious matter that would have to be investigated from a professional point of view and so forth. So we need to be quite careful about those things. I agree with you, for instance, on the question of the issues of infrastructure affecting the police service delivery points, such as police stations and so on. The Deputy Minister here has been tasked with the issue between ourselves and Public Works to begin to look into some of those issues and prioritization, for instance, of the construction of new police stations, as well as issues of infrastructure in those particular instances. Honorable Mwango, I think it's an endless debate, the question of civilian leadership and so forth. If we're not careful, I can tell you this, if we're not careful, we will end up with a situation where you, in this very same portfolio, for an example, you'll end up with members of parliament that shouldn't say a word about the issues of policing because they do not have a police background. So I'm just simply saying it's a matter that is ongoing. On the question that you raise, the question of police brutality, there are two things I want to say. The one is that I think we should be clear that you do not have a prevalent culture in South Africa of police brutality. You have incidences, isolated incidences of police brutality. So the Media Masha case is exactly one of those. What is interesting, though, is that on each sort of given incident, we do undertake our work in terms of investigating those particular matters and act accordingly. So you'll remember, for instance, in the recent past, the 8 implicated policemen have been fired from the police service, even before the pronunciation from the court. In fact, if you were to look at the trends within the public service, I think we have done very well in terms of just from the investigation, processing the matter, as well as the subsequent sort of verdict to get those particular members out of the police service. Reverend Mishra, the question of the conviction rate, look, I would agree with that particular concern. However, it is precisely the reason why that we're putting quite an emphasis on the question of strengthening our coordinating mechanisms in the criminal justice class as a whole, so that indeed, from arrest, processing, and sentencing, you have quite a tight sort of coordination and seamless kind of activity at that particular level. So I think you have a point. Harping on the negative, Ms. Molebats, I think you have a point. You see, honorable members, there's danger here, and I think this is what the Deputy Minister was trying to to get across. The danger is this: if we do not value the work of the police, nobody else out there is going to value the contribution of the police in our society. So you shall have these killings in the Western Cape, for instance, in some other instances, as part of the backlash, precisely because of the message that we churn out at the political level. So we need to be very careful. We need to be quite responsible in doing so.
Honourable Minister, if you can sum up.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Lastly, Honourable Member Mbele, I like your contribution. I really seriously do like your contribution. I think it was quite constructive and so forth. And all I can say is that maintain your sanity, because I think that going forward is going to assist us, all of us, in terms of tackling the matters before us. And therefore, Chair, all we're asking for is that with this kind of support that we have received, We are asking each and every one of us as members of this country, for instance, to do our bit in ensuring that we support the work of the police, but we work with the police in ensuring that we create a safe and a stable environment. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Members, before we adjourn this sitting of the EPC, let's just remind you that there is another extended public committee session here at 2 o'clock. That will be on performance monitoring and evaluation as well as statistics South Africa at 14 hours. So those members who serve in those cluster committees, indeed, it will be an opportunity to hear from that debate. That then concludes the debate and the business of this extended public committee. The committee will now rise, and thank you very much.